Hi, welcome to another episode of the Visual Storytelling Today podcast. The show is designed for you, the marketer or entrepreneur, who may be looking for more effective ways to connect better with audiences through the exciting world of visual storytelling. We will introduce you to inspiring experts from diverse industries that bring fresh perspectives on how to capture attention, build trust, emotional empathy, and last but not least, drive business results. Enjoy the show.
Hi everybody. So it's really exciting to see, all the, ups and downs in the world of AI. If you're thinking, we are just, I would say pretty much 4 years in since AI came up to our lives, and many corporations are still struggling to figure out how to adopt it correctly. So to help us kind of understand this world and some of the best practices of really how to max the value from AI in a corporate environment, I'm super excited to have Charlene Li. Charlene actually was in my show exactly a year ago, so it's great to see her again. And she and her partner, Dr. Kaia Walsh, just recently published a new book called Winning with AI, the 90-day blueprint for success. So I'm super excited to learn about the backstory behind this book. And of course, we are here for also some great inputs about storytelling, how that would tie to that. But before we jump into the book, maybe just if you can introduce yourself again to our audience so they have a good context where you come from.
Sure. Great to be on the show again. My name is Charlene Li. I'm a longtime author and analyst. I started my career in newspapers, actually, helping get them online in the mid-90s. And then became a Forrester analyst for about 10 years, started my own firm, Altimeter Group, and then was acquired by a brand strategy firm, Profit Brand Strategy. So storytelling is very much in a DNA. Across multiple dimensions. And my focus has been on how organizations and leaders use technologies to transform themselves, to disrupt themselves. My previous book in 2019 was called The Disruption Mindset. And I just published a new book called Winning with AI, the 90-day blueprint for success.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I definitely followed lots of your articles all the way to the 90s. And, you've definitely been a great, thought leader in the space for many years. So it's great to see how you're evolving now to the AI generation. And so like any good story, you need to have an inciting incident, right? Something they're going to serve as a trigger to make you want to start your journey. So what was that magic moment for you to decide writing this book?
Well, it's really poignant because soon after ChatGPT came out, I was curious to see how much of me was in it. So I gave it the questions from a podcast interview that I had just done because I had my answers and I wanted to see what AI did. And I took those answers and my real answers, broke them apart, gave them to people and asked them to evaluate it. And AI's answers were about 80% as good as mine.
Wow.
And I went, whoa. There's me. All of me is in here. So what's going to happen to me? And I really thought about what that 20% meant. That 20%, what was it that was different? And in honestly, AI was better than me in some of the questions because the responses were more concise. They did a better job with storytelling. But the places where I did better was where there was something unique that I brought into it. I brought myself, my authenticity, my voice into those responses. And that struck me that I need to let AI do the 80%. That 80% that was me, and there's just let it do the heavy lifting. And I need to focus on the 20%. The new questions that haven't been asked, the insights that come from my half-formed thoughts. But that was the thing that was really important. And in this age where everybody has access to the same data, that is going to be the unique competitive advantage that you have.
Yeah, and I think you absolutely nailed it, because one of the things that I see all the time is that AI is such a tempting magnet for people just to use it and paste it as is And that's why we have this AI slope, this subpar kind of poor content that doesn't mean anything, but it sounds good. And the challenge is how you really write responsibly AI, take all the advantages, you said the 80%, because it has access to so many sources, but at the same time, ensure that your own personal voice is actually very tangible, very in the forefront. And it's a challenge because most people are tempted to just go with what sounds really great and yeah, let's go for it. And you see a lot of in the publishing industry, even in academia, where some papers get rejected, they put some invisible codes to track, to fool the AI to see that it was done completely with AI. So it's definitely a challenge, and I can see where you're coming from, why this is huge important to understand how to write the 20% correctly. So let me ask you this. So since we're here in a storytelling podcast, how would you define storytelling in the age of AI, especially, for marketers or business leaders?
Well, I think of storytelling, that the purpose of storytelling is to move people, and specifically to move them to action, to move them from a place of this is how I see the world to see the world in a different way, and to evoke this emotion so that they remember the story. And even more importantly, I think of storytelling as creating a narrative upon which people can write their own story, how they can see themselves in that story and see how their actions could unfold and add to the story. So storytelling isn't just about telling a story and a narrative, but it's about involving other people in it. And that's the key difference, I think, between traditional storytelling, where you go to a theater, you listen to a story, and you're entertained. Here, you're really trying to build a movement for change. And so I think about using AI is how can we enhance that, either by understanding where people are coming from so the story can be more compelling for them and hit them in a better way, but also in the execution, but also just helping the storyteller dig deeper to become more connected to what is that motion that they want to have. Where is the motivation behind that motion? How do I tap into my authenticity even more?
Yeah.
We think we're being authentic. We can always be more authentic, more vulnerable.
For sure. Yeah, I really like what you said about using AI to help you kind of drive the narrative of the story. And again, in my book, I know a lot of people confuse story and narrative. They think it's the same thing. And narrative, obviously, it's basically just a popular belief that you're trying to distill with your audience, and the stories are just the proof point. So if we take this concept to your book, what would you say is your larger overarching narrative that you'd like to, or the big idea that you're trying to communicate?
Yeah, I love the way you put it that way. The overarching story is the narrative is that you don't need an AI strategy. You already have a business strategy. You need to use AI in service and in support of your business strategy.
Right.
And we forget that because AI is all encompassing. It's incredible. We can do amazing things with it. Every day I am in awe and in wonder. It's just amazing the days that we have now. But at the same time, it has to be directed towards something. And so technology for the sake of technology doesn't work, but technology in service of your objectives, your purpose, your mission, that is very important. And we tend to lose sight of that. So all the more important now when organization leaders say to me, we're using AI, but we're not seeing very good returns. We're not just seeing the impact. And I'm like,
right.
Well, how are you using it? And it's almost always like these easy, quick wins, which are great, but they don't really move the needle. They're not using it to address their biggest strategic objectives. And this is where I think it's so important. And we'll get into this. It is really hard right now because so many people are fearful and anxious about AI. And I think there's a balance between all the people who are super optimistic about it and people who are super pessimistic about it. I think of it as realistic optimism. And and I just saw the movie The AI Doc last night. They call it apocalyptimists, and which is a lot harder to say, but it's understanding here's a potential, but truly grasping what AI can do and what it can't do, being very realistic about it, and then taking the steps to figure out how to use it in your job and in your organization.
Yeah, so it sounds like basically your narrative is about AI is great, but you need to know how realistically to drive it in order to get the results that you're expecting. So definitely, I can definitely relate to that. I see a lot of mistakes going on where people just, especially, sometimes in customer service, you see this, pushbacks where the AI basically provide, misleading advice, things of that nature that kind of backfires, and media explosion around that. So yeah, driving it responsibly is really important. So one of the things you talk about in your book is that you build a 90-day blueprint for deploying AI in an organization. So I have a lot of leaders that actually tuning in or watching. So what leader of a company could realistically achieve in that time?
Again, we're not talking about full-blown implementation of an agentic workflow in 90 days, just to be very clear.
Okay.
But I think what you'll have at the end of the 90 days is a really good roadmap of how you're going to use AI every single quarter for the next 18 months. And also understanding what are the resources you need, the culture, the people, the technology, the governance needed to execute on that roadmap. So we start, again, it's 12 weeks, a week for each step. And we tell you where to begin, how to put together that roadmap, how do you understand how value is being created, understand the gaps that exist in your organization, and then how to fill those gaps with training and AI fluency, how to think about creating an AI-ready culture, how to think about your AI tool stack, and especially how you're going to make decisions, the governance, and how that is set up in your organization. My co-author, Dr. Kaia Walsh, has a great way of saying this. There are several right ways, and we talk about all the multiple right ways to do things, but there are definitely wrong ways. And we just want to steer you away from the wrong ways. And one of the biggest ones we see is having a long list of use cases and thinking that is your AI strategy. Or thinking we have ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot, which is great. But the reality is not that many people are using it. They don't know how to use it. There's no training. You don't give time for training. And there's, again, no roadmap of how to use those powerful tools to create value.
I see.
So the book really lays out step by step how you put that plan together.
And what is the scope for these 90 days? Is it just one function in the organization, or it's...
You can, ideally, it's for the entire organization. Again, we talk about strategy. You can talk about business strategy overall. You can talk about a departmental strategy, but whatever is that level of strategy, how will you use AI to support that strategy? And this is the thing, is leaders will come to me and say, how do I get up to speed on AI? Because I need to get up to speed on it before I can start working with it. And I say, honestly, you'll never be up to speed. You will never feel like you're caught up. You will always be learning. And that is probably the most important thing to do as a leader, is to realize it's going to feel very uncomfortable not having all the answers. But I guarantee you, if you get started, you will have a lot more answers, but you will have a lot more questions at the same time, but you'll be in a much better position 6 weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, to be able to even understand what questions to be asking. You just be in a completely different space.
Right.
So the whole thing is to just get started.
Absolutely. Definitely. And you mentioned some of the misconception you're coming across, like companies telling you that they have a laundry list of use cases and that's their AI strategy, or they have already installed Copilot. What other misconceptions are you hearing that could basically help people listening to watch out from?
Yeah, I think, again, thinking of it as primarily productivity and efficiency tool, as a cost-cutting tool. And that is one source of the value it can be creating. But I think the first source is really to look at customer engagement, to understand, again, your audience, to be able to understand and serve them in a better way, to be able to customize and personalize your offerings. Again, the more you can speak to their specific needs at the right time and right place with the right message, that is going to resonate so much more. And so instead of thinking about creating more messages with AI, how do you create better and potentially fewer messages? I've always thought that the holy grail is to know not when to message people, but also when not to message them.
Right.
When it's just going to cause dissonance by you messaging, because they just bought your product. Why are you messaging me again? Don't you know me? I was just there. Right. And for you not to be able to understand that and recognize that and respect that part of your relationship is a loss. So so you can talk about customer engagement, you can talk about efficiency and productivity, but also I think it's a potential for reinvention.
Right.
And that is where you can do new things you couldn't have done before because now you can use AI. So it's reinventing how you work, looking at new customers, looking at new products and services.
What about misconceptions that related internally in the organization? Do you get any pushbacks by leaders that might say, I don't want to jeopardize my employee retention, the whole threat of job loss, that's one thing. Others may be, risk averse around security, hallucination. What do you think?
Yeah, we talk about in the book in the first week about just getting started, learning how to use AI, making sure we have the team, the tools. The second chapter is all about responsible and ethical AI. Just because you can use AI doesn't mean you should use AI. So we have something called the AI trust pyramid, and it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the bottom is safety, security, and privacy. If you do not have that, all bets are off. You have to have security, you have to have privacy, you have to have safety. The layer after that is fairness. And there is no universal definition of fairness. So you have to feel like the AI is being fair. It's making decisions based on your values that you as an organization and as people in it espouse. And that comes everything from how you make decisions. For example, if you're a bank and how you make loans, that is fair, to also, are you going to replace me? Is that fair? Doesn't seem fair. And then the reliability, which is the quality and the accuracy, which goes to the hallucinations. How do you ensure that it's there? We talk about accountability. You have an agent. Who's accountable for that agent when something goes wrong? And then transparency, which is, are we being clear when we are using AI, when we're not? How are we using it? How is it impacting the way we do work and make decisions? And my sense is there is a tremendous amount of fear, a tremendous amount of anxiety. And the research shows that only 39% of Americans believe that AI is going to be more beneficial than harmful. And in China, that's 83%, more than double.
Oh, wow.
So there are lots of different societal reasons for that. But as a leader of an organization, you go into thinking about AI and the adoption and the storytelling around it, knowing that people are by default biased against using it. And this is where I think storytelling is so important. And also understanding that fear is there. So if you were to go to say to them, no, don't worry, AI is not going to take your job.
Yeah.
They're not going to believe you. They're just not. But if instead you say, we all recognize that AI is the future, it's coming whether we like it or not. We want to equip you with the best tools, with the best training, and also with the time to be able to learn how to use this and use it well in your job, to understand what AI can do and what it can't do, to know how to use it responsibly and ethically. But importantly, to prepare yourself for this future, because the more you are prepared, the better we are prepared. And let's acknowledge the fact that you may not be here at this company forever. You'll just be a better, more employable person if you learn how to be fluent with AI. That I can promise you, but only promise that if you can keep that promise.
Right.
So that's a very different dialogue. And what I'm hearing from a lot of people is my company has done nothing around AI. We don't have a roadmap. It's unclear how we're using it. We're even banning it. So everyone's using this shadow AI. My company just is not worth it. I'm not given any resources. My company is going to sink. It's going to lose. So I'm going to look for another job at another company. So when I talk to leaders, this is not just a technology problem. It is a talent retention issue too, as well.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
If you want to keep your best people, you better make sure they have these tools, understand how to use them, can be thrillingly excellent and successful at using these tools to advance themselves in the company.
Right.
So
What?
it's all these things mixed together that needs to go into your storytelling about why is AI important to us.
Yeah, and I'm sure, by now, working with clients and different organizations, you probably have developed a series of personas of company styles, that how they behave, and their typical typecast in the story of adopting AI. So do you see of course, there are those that are on the sidelines that never did anything, and those that put something very small and expect miracles. And I believe, from what I'm reading in the news, sometimes they compel their employees to actually use it, and the employees actually using it in a copy and paste fashion. So the content, all the presentations, all the reports, the documents, all look very synthetic and with no substance, no meaning. So how do you make the shift from, yeah, we have AI, we told our employees, you guys got to start using it every day, versus intelligent usage and finding, creating value. You talk a lot about in the book about how you create value using AI. How do you shift them to generating genuine value that's meaningful?
Yeah, this is where, again, I do believe processes, quality standards really make a difference. So it's not just about using AI, but how does AI fit into your existing process? And I think the worst thing you could be doing is to automate a bad process. Instead, we think, how would you do this process now that you have AI? Let's just look at content generation, marketing content. You could use AI just to do the writing that a junior person would have done that. An editor reviews it and off to the races you go. But the thing that is really unique about writers is that they can have the sixth sense of what will move people. Is that being in there? Can you make sure that the people who are overseeing it, and maybe the same writers, I like to say, how are we making sure that same creative process, that same insight and judgment and wisdom is incorporated into that work? And that we're not replacing that, because that is irreplaceable, that 20% again. So how are we training people to do that? How are we putting value against the importance of these elements?
Yeah.
We talk about in the last chapter of the book about this idea of a superhuman. It's integrated intelligence, where you take the best of what AI can do, and we take the things that only humans can do. And that is things like experience and have empathy, self-reflection, have intuition, judgment, and wisdom.
Right.
And these are the things that, in addition to AI, just take it to a totally different level. So you can just play in the area where AI agents are just talking to themselves. But if you're able to infuse it with some aspect of humanity, that takes it to a different level, and you create things that have never been seen before.
Right. Yeah, and I think you touched also in the book, the different categories of AI. We started with generative AI, where people just ask the chatbot to do stuff for you, and it's a kind of a dialogue. Then you move to a more kind of automation. Maybe they do a couple of things, and then all the way up is the agentic. And with the agentic, this is kind of a double sword, isn't it? You can pretty much have, and we hear all the stories about the one person agency with 7 figures revenue because he has different job titles as agents. So how do you explain that threat, especially now when Claude just released Claude Code and Cowork, and 2 trillion got wiped from all the software. Anybody can create software today. So how do you balance all this narrative
We are in
that's flowing.
there is no doubt that we are in a huge
Yeah.
world of change. And I'm speaking as a solopreneur who's
Yeah.
using all of these tools to give himself leverage. And I used to have an
Hmm.
analyst firm, altimeter, and we had many, many people employed in all these different roles. And I don't need a lot of people now. In fact, I just have
Yeah.
my agents do a lot of that work. And I'm pushing the boundaries to see how far I can do it. Right now, I think we are in this transition period, and there's no doubt in my mind that jobs are going to be impacted. There's
Hmm.
no doubt.
Yeah.
One bank said used to have 90 people who would read checks. Now AI can do that. We only need
Yeah.
5. So
Yeah.
85 people, what do we do with them? And I think organizations are going to do their best to try to we task them, we skill them into new areas. But we know that the jobs that are being created by AI are not necessarily being filled by the same people whose jobs are being taken by AI.
Right.
And the only redeeming factor I have right now is that AI is really good at doing tasks. It's not that good at doing jobs,
Hmm.
like whole jobs. So we're still going to need humans for a while, especially in complex organizations. If you're a solopreneur, sure, you can do a lot of these things. You just don't hire the people. But I think it's a lot
Right.
different if you're trying to replace people. And here's my thing is we have this great case study in the book where a call center is just ripe for
Yeah.
AI efficiency. Estimates are like between 40 and 60% of people would be replaced in call centers. And the thing that they said from the very beginning, we're not going to use AI to replace people. We don't have a too many people problem. We have a not enough good people problem. So they use AI in the beginning to increase the quality of their
Hmm.
people. So they
Right.
reduce error rates by 85%.
Oh, wow.
They reduce the training time by 30 or 40% to get people from entry level to mid level performance. They took all those people who were low performing and made them better. And so this has
Hmm.
had an overall better performing workforce.
Hmm.
Then they said, wow, we have all this capacity. What do we do with it? You could just cut it. But they said, no, we have this long list of things we want to do for our customers. Let's put people on that long list because we never had the time, people, and money.
Right.
Now we have that.
Yeah.
And then they said, what else could we do? Now that we have this incredibly AI fluent workforce, we have
Hmm.
all these data capabilities. What else can we do on behalf of our clients? So they started getting into new businesses because they were servicing these clients, especially professional service firms that were never going to
Hmm.
have an AI department. So let us agentify your workflow because we're
Interesting.
business process outsourcers. So we'll just start agentifying all the things that we already have your data, we have your processes.
Yeah.
We're just going to put AI and do things that you never could before.
Huh.
So I think that is a much better story to tell.
Yeah.
In the end, you can tell 2 stories. AI is going to be used to make us more efficient and cut people. And it's basically a story of scarcity, a story of saying, we have to do more with less, and we're just going to have less.
Hmm.
Or you can tell a story of abundance that says, oh my goodness, there's so many things we can do. We haven't discovered them. And we're going to go through a huge amount of change. And it's not going to hit everyone equally. We'll do our best to maximize the
Hmm.
outcomes for as many people, but we can't guarantee everything is going to stay the same. But this is
Right.
the direction we're going to head in. We're going to use AI to maximize our potential and your potential. Will
Yeah,
you come on this journey with us?
no, I think this is a fair and very exciting way to put it because it actually gives, again, wearing my storytelling hat, gives your employees, your stakeholders, basically a role to play in this story and shaping it. And that's what everybody wants to do. At the end of the day, they want to be seen, they count for something. So if you give them a role in the story, then they'll be much more motivated. And if you just tell them, we don't know either, we're going to go together and we're going to discover these things. And as you said, and I totally agree with this vision that AI is not yet fully, exploited to the maximum it can be. And there are new job titles that we don't know about yet that's going to emerge, that's going to change and open up whole new horizon for people that now are super scared about their, future career prospects. And I talk to my students every time. I give them all, every semester I have ask me anything about job market entry and challenges like that. And these are some of the questions.
Yeah. It's interesting because if you think about where we are in the life cycle, again, things are moving much faster than they have in previous cycles. But just to give you some perspective, you could argue that the World Wide Web was came out around 1995.
Yeah.
And by 1998, 3 years later, the web wasn't that great. You could do amazing things on it, but it still wasn't that great. We are 3 years into this space.
Yeah, it's nothing.
We're still very, very early.
Yeah.
People are making things up, inventing things. I had to take about 3 weeks off to take care of some family issues. And during that time, Claude Cowork was launched.
Yep.
OpenClaw came out. Mobile was having its own conversation with itself. And I came back like, the world has completely changed. What is this?
Yeah.
What's going on here? So again, you just take your eye off just for a little bit and the whole world changes. And so to expect that the world is just going to be static is, I think, the wrong way to be looking at this.
Right.
And I realize it is hard, it's head spinning, but I assure you this is where to start. Start with the things that you know. You are an expert on your organization. You understand its purpose. You know its strategy. You're an expert in your field. Stand on that as your starting foundation. And then you can have the world swirl around you. All these uncertain things that are constantly changing and happening around you. Just keep asking, how does that impact my purpose? How does that impact my strategy? Put it in the context of the world that you understand. But it's not about understanding that world. It's about understanding where you are coming from and starting from.
I see. And just to paint a picture for people about, the power of your 90-day plan, did you have examples of organizations that really nailed it in terms of using AI correctly according to your vision?
Yes, in the last book, I tell a story about Jeff Maggioncalda, who was then the CEO of Coursera, the online course company. And somebody sent him an email with an explanation of the company's strategy. And he asked, it was in Slack actually, and he asked the person who sent it to him, like, where did this come from? He goes, from ChatGPT. And he goes, what was the prompt? And it was this: tell me the strategy for Coursera. And he goes, that's it? And he says, yeah, that's it. And he goes, oh my God. the thought bubble, his head exploding is what you could see. And by the end of the month, he had a roadmap of how they were going to use AI to impact their company. And they rolled it out over the next few months. And by May, they were executing on it and translating all of their courses into 23 different languages. So I look at this, it requires that vision and that understanding that you could do things completely differently. And they said, how do we expand Coursera's market? Literally overnight, in the course of a few months, they enabled audiences from all around the world to be able to tap into these courses in real time. They created tools that gave AI tools to the instructors to help them create their courses so they could create better courses faster. I mean, they just started going down this path of all the different ways. And the thing I loved about this is that the CEO was at the very front of this and showing people, he goes, I'm not a programmer, but I'm building these things. I'm using these tools. He even created a course for CEOs on how to use AI.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Based on his
experience. And very specifically saying, how do you think about this as a CEO? And I think that is what it takes. We talk about leadership and how we have to model the way. And what I see oftentimes leadership now is, oh, it's AI, it's a technology. I'm going to have my CIO take care of this. Yeah. It is not a technology. It has technology in it, but it is a transformational force. It is a strategic initiative. And you, as the leader in the organization, need to be absolutely involved in driving the strategic benefit and value.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I think I like this example of the Coursera CEO because I think it's a great way to demonstrate how a leader can basically start very simple and then have his C-suite contribute. This is really the interplay between the AI, in the defense sector they call it human machine teaming, but it's really an augmented AI where you have people provide their inputs to shape the finished product. And I think that's really where the value is. It's not like, if you take the analogy of driving a driverless car, we don't expect AI to drive you blindly, but you still need to have your hand on the wheel to kind of make sure that it has some meaning at the end of the day. So
Right. And right now we have to have that.
mm-hmm.
But you can imagine a day when AI does a better job than the human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's a question becomes, when do you take the hand off the wheel? When are you confident that's the case?
Right.
And there will come a day. And also, what are the things that humans do better than AI? Or the combination of the two, a blended, augmented AI and human.
Mm-hmm.
When does the AI get better because of a human? When does the human get better because of AI? And I think
Right.
this is the role of managers going forward. We talk about managing all the resources you have available to do the job. You need to figure out which combination of these things works best. And so it raises the question of metrics.
Yep.
What are we measuring here? How are we measuring the effectiveness of AI? Are we going to measure it by just just by the activities there? Are we measuring it by outcomes
Time
and the
saved,
outputs?
cost, yeah.
Times, right. I mean, what are the things that we're going to measure this by?
Yep.
And so this is there is no right answer. It goes against what are you trying to have as outcomes? But oftentimes we go back to these vanity metrics that talk about activity and not value. And I just keep coming back to just what is the true value, the underlying value that you are creating.
Right. So we're getting towards the close of the show. But before we go, I'm kind of curious, if you can leave us with your top 3 tips leaders can take away to start thinking in their mind the right way about AI.
Yeah. I think the number one thing for leaders to do is become AI fluent. And what I mean by that is it feels like it flows. When you're fluent with a language, when you're fluent with a tool, it's just second nature. And it's not to say you know everything, but it feels comfortable. You can live in it. It's in your skin. And you have to know and understand what AI can and cannot do, use it responsibly, use it for your job, but get to the point where you feel truly fluent. Because until you do, you're not going to turn to it. You're going to see it as this other object. But when you see it as your partner, as something that is a part of you, that's when you begin to truly use it. So use it all the time. And if you don't, find somebody who can tutor you on how to do this, create some accountability, whatever you have to do. And I'm like, how long is it going to take you to do this? Like, how long would it take you to become AI fluent? And nobody gives me an answer. And like any smart goal, it needs to be time bound. So I'm going to give you 3 months to become AI fluent. What's it going to take? So what are the tasks you're going to do every single day, each week, each month to get yourself to the point where you feel fluent? But that is the most important thing I could say right now. Again, something I talked about before was to make sure you're tying your strategy and your AI together. And the third thing is just think about how you want to show up as a leader. What are you going to say about AI? And here's my little tip. When you go into a meeting, ask somebody as you get started, settle down. So how did you use AI to prepare for this meeting? And you may get this dumbfounded look like, oh, I wouldn't use it. And you can tell them, well, this is how I used it. Right. And my expectation is that the next time you come to this meeting, you use AI to prepare for this meeting.
Yeah, that's a
and you begin
idea.
every meeting that way. And this is about changing the culture.
Yeah.
This is about setting that cadence and that pace for how are you going to use AI. And that gives people the permission then to go and use AI, to experiment with it, to learn. It's not about just necessarily setting aside time, but how do you incorporate it into your work every single day?
Yeah. And I think also to your point, with these examples, even, with the meeting room use case, I think what people are lacking is really show me like a best practice of using AI correctly versus a wrong use case. So once you have them flanked next to each other, I think people start, because when you tell people, start using AI, be fluent, they're thinking, oh, I'm using it already. I'm asking, the chatbot every day things. But is that the kind of AI strategy you're talking about? Of course not. It's something much deeper than that. So people needs to see the actual examples, I think.
Right. And this is where I think storytelling is so important. I always like to say everybody in an organization should be able to answer 3 questions. The first question is, what's the future we're trying to build? The second question is, what's our strategy to get from where we are today to that future? And the third and most important one is, what is my role in making that strategy a reality?
Right.
To making it a success. And so if you as a leader can tell and are confident that people can answer those 3 questions, then AI is a simple follow-up to say, how am I going to accomplish those things? To make sure you're pulling in the same direction, in the right direction. Again, part of AI fluency is knowing how to use AI in service of your job, of the things that you are doing to create value. And if everything that you're doing is creating value, then then that's great. The problem is, are we clear that everyone knows what they're doing and how it's connected back to the strategy? They may not even be able to articulate what that strategy is. And I think them not being able to do that is a failure of storytelling. The best strategies are stories.
Right.
That say, this is the journey we're going to go on. We're starting here. These are the challenges we're going to encounter. These are steps we're going to take. And this is where we're going to end up. And when people can remember that strategy, when they can remember that story, then they can put themselves in it, which is where we began.
No, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Charlene. This is always a pleasure to speak with you, and especially now about this, the brave new world of AI. If people want to reach out, if they have any questions, want to buy your book, how they can do that?
Yeah, the book is at winningwithaibook.com. That's a landing page. And you can find all of my information on LinkedIn or on my website, charleneli.com.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. And I look forward to, seeing you more and getting to know your next adventure down the road.
Thanks again for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Visual Storytelling Today is recorded in Miami, Florida. The show is published exclusively by Visual Storytelling Institute. Learn more at visualstorytell.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on the iTunes Store. Until next time, don't let your big story wait to be told.